I gotta use the picture because I hung my quilt up and it's way up high. I'd have to get on a ladder to show you. Hey, this is Carrie with Canary Quilts, and this is the 6th month of our Simple Whatnots 11th, I always forget that, 11th Simple Whatnots quilt along. And this is a really fun one to put together. It takes a lot longer. It's a 36-inch square quilt, which sounds small, but it's fairly large. It's surprised, maybe because I've been working with such small ones. Like the last couple we put together were 16 and 18 inches, but it's not bad. So it's pretty simple because there's 9 blocks. They're all pretty much the same, except for 5 are red, 4 are green. And then the outer border is the same block over and over, except half are red, half are green. So there's not a lot to learn in this quilt. Once you know how to put one of the blocks together, you can put them all together. It's just the amount of blocks that there are. So, you know, I'm gonna walk you through one of the blocks and one of the borders, and we'll make it through this quilt together. But I'm gonna throw some pictures of it hanging up. I took some pictures of it on my table so you can see it. It really would be too big for me to stand here and hold it up. I don't think I could fit it all in the camera, but anyway, this is, yeah, this is only gonna be one video because there's really only 2 blocks to put together. There's just a lot of them. So let's get started. Okay, to get started on our 11th Simple Whatnots Club month 6 keeping room, I have cut all my fabrics and I kind of wanted to walk through those cuts. First I wanted to show you the fabric that I have. This is for the backing, and I'm going to set that aside, and it's a substantial piece. It is a 36-inch quilt, square quilt, but that's a substantial piece of fabric. So that's the quilt we're going to be making. So they have you cut the cream colors first, and that's really where I ran into a lot of my problems with cutting. I mean, it wasn't terrible, and if I wasn't doing a video, I would just go on. It was a little confusing, so I kind of wanted to walk through it with you. The first thing they have you do is cut 10 strips, or 9 strip, 1.5 inch wide with the fabric, but then they say to cross cut 5 of them into these squares, and you need 228 squares, but 5 strips only gives you approximately 160. So they have you cut 9 strips. They tell you what to do with 5 of them, then they never do tell you what to do with the other 4. If you just do this math, you need almost 10 strips to get 228 of those squares. So I would cut the 9 strips and cut them all into squares, and then if you need more, cut another strip, or you may have some left over from these to finish it out. I don't know why they tell you to just do 5 of this. I think that's an error, and I've gone to the Henry Glass website to try to, they say at the end of the pattern to go to their website and see if there's pattern updates, but I can't find where the pattern updates are at all. If anybody knows, leave me a message or a comment below. Cut all 9 strips up. Don't just cut 5. Cut all 9 strips up for these squares. Then we need 4 strips that are 1.5 by width of fabric. These 4 are going to get paired over here with these 4. Then it says you need 5 strips cut into 72 rectangles, which are these right here. That worked out. And then you cut 2 squares and then cut them in half on the diagonal to get these 4 triangles. You're going to do that with a gold later also, and that's going to get paired here. So that's what that's for. And then when you cut the strip for these squares, you'll be able to cut 6 rectangles out of what's left over to get these right here, and then you'll cut 2 more strips to get the rest of the 6. So you've got 12 of these rectangles also. So those instructions are pretty good for everything else but this. They tell you to cut 9 strips. I would cut 9 strips. Cut all your squares that you can out of, and then if you have any left over down here, finish it off or cut another strip. So the next thing they want you to cut is we're going to start cutting block A. That right there. That burgundy strip, the cranberry, or not strip, the cranberry square. So we're going to start cutting our colors for block A, and I They have you cut 60 rectangles and 20 squares, and they have you cut 7 strips. I think you only need 6 strips. Oh, I wanted to go back real quick. This is what I had left over from the cranberry, or not the cranberry, the cream. And you can see I got all these strips left over because I cut it the way they said to cut it. And so I've got all these strip sets left over that I really wouldn't want to have left over. So that's kind of why I'm telling you how it worked out for me. I cut it like they said, and this is what I got left over. So that's the cream. The cranberry, they have you cut 7 strips. Now maybe they're being generous, but I think you only need 6. If you do the math, you can get, out of 5 strips you can get the rectangles, and out of 1 strip you can get the squares. And so this is what I ended up with left over from the cranberry, was these strips. So that's why I'm telling you, they say 7, I think 6. I would cut 6, and if you need more, cut it. So next is the green, which is right here, and that worked out fine because I just had 1 strip. So, you know, they tell you to cut these 2 rectangles, the square, and the binding out of this, and that worked out great. The gold of block A turned out pretty good too. I just had, I mean, this is just leftovers. It's not leftover strips or anything. They have you cut squares to do this. And then from that strip, they have you cut the remainder of the 25 squares that you need. And then you cut 2 strips here with the fabric that are going to go with these. So that all worked out fine. Okay, now on to block B. And the cranberry here, that worked out fine. I didn't have much left there, just a little bit of the strips. You're cutting 20 of the large rectangles, 16 of the medium rectangles, and 16 squares, and that turned out fine. I don't have any issue with those cuts. From the green right here, I have just this left, so that worked out great. Those cuts were fine. I have you cut 5 strips, and you want 52 rectangles and 16 squares. So that turned out fine. And then the gold here, I ended up with a lot of strip left from what they had me cut. They have you cut 5 strips. Well, you have to cut these 2 medium rectangles and then 20 squares. I really only think you need 3. I would cut 3, and then if you need to cut more you can, but I only cut 3, and you probably can get all of that out of there. So you don't get all of this left over like I did. So that's the other thing. They want you to cut 5 to cut these 2 things out. I'd start with 3. And then you have to cut 2 strip sets with the fabric, which are going to go with 2 of these over here. And then with the cranberry in the end, there's not much you can do with this because you only need 4 of these squares. And then you need 4 of the, well, let me show you what these are. This is going to be the trim right here. You're cutting strips for this trim in between the border and the center. So you're going to have 2 shorter length and 2 longer length. This is just the way it's cut. You will end up with some strips left over. So no issues there either. So that's the cuts. Mostly these squares and then a couple of colors in here. You can cut less than they say. That's it for the cutting. So I'm going to set this aside. I won't need that. I'm going to put that with the backing to get started. The first thing we're going to do is piece the blocks. The blocks are going to be blocks A and blocks B. We'll get started on that. Yeah, looks like a lot of work, but it'll be fun. Okay, to get started piecing our blocks, we want to grab some of the square background and the rectangle background and all of our block A cuts. But everything that we marked for block A we're going to need. So once you have all that assembled, then we're going to start putting together, first thing we're going to do is start putting together these points in one of these, in these blocks. Not one of them, we're putting them all together. And there's 5 of the block A's. So we're going to start with these here, the points. And what you want to do is you're going to need 40 of the cranberry rectangles and 40 of the square backgrounds. And 20 of them are going to be marked going from bottom left to top right. And 20 of them are going to be marked going from top left to bottom right, because they're going to be mirroring each other. Because we're going to be putting another section in here. It's going to have a whole block on it. So that's why we need to mirror it. So we're going to have 20 of these and 20 of these. you mark them in this fashion here, and then we're going to sew along that line, and we're going to end up with a piece that looks just like that. So once we have this piece, then we will trim 1/4 of an inch from the seam, and we will iron it towards the corner. So that's how we're going to end up with 20 of these units here that mirror each other. So let's get these sewn real quick. We're going to use a ruler to cut all of these. Let's put these back. I'm going to trim 1/4 of an inch from the seam I just made. So we now have all our cuts, and we can iron all of these towards the corner. Okay, I finished all 40 of these units here. 20 for this side and 20 for this side. Actually, it's going to be like this when we finally put them together. So the next thing we want to do is build this center section here, and it's going to be with the, and this is all still from block A pieces, the green shorter rectangle and a square background piece. And all we're going to do is put it together on the ends here, and we are going to sew 1/4 of an inch, and we are going to iron towards the green piece, and we're going to make 20 of these. So I've got all my sections here sewn together, and we are going to iron it towards the green piece. So that section is super simple to put together, and we have 20 of these. So now what we want to do is we want to put these sections together. So it's gonna go together just like this. So start here and line up your edges and pin it down. And what I am going to do, I'm going to do all 20 of these at once. Sew these together at 1/4 of an inch, and we are going to iron towards the green centerpiece. So the reason I did all 20 of them at once is so I could chain piece them together. I don't think I made that clear, just wanted to let you know that's why I'm doing 20 at once instead of one little block at a time. And then once I get these cut apart, I am going to iron them all towards the green section, which is this side right here. And we'll get it just ironed right over like that. I'm going to do all 20 the same way. Okay, I've got all my left section done here, and now all we have to do is put the right section on. And it's going to look like, it's going to go on like that. So again, just mark those, or line up those edges, and clip it. Clip the side you're going to sew, even though it's quite obvious what side you're sewing. It's always good practice. So we are going to clip all of these. I'm going to get them all sewn, and we are ironing again towards this green centerpiece. Okay, here's my finished units right here. I have 20 of them. And I'm going to set these aside, and the next thing we're going to get ready to go is the center unit part of these blocks. And you're going to take your green, cranberry, and gold squares and put them together into a 9 patch, just like this one, where the greens are in the corners and the cranberries are on the inside, and then one gold in the middle. And so this is going to be a simple 9 patch to put together. And we're going to be ironing towards the green pieces and towards the gold. So if you remember that, just green or gold is how you're going to iron your pieces, or always away from the cranberry. So we'll just get these put together. I'll put one together, and then we're going to make 5 of these. So there's the first half of my rows, and remember, you're always ironing away from the cranberry square. So we'll finish our rows out here. Okay, there's our rows, and like I said, I found it easiest to remember to iron away from the cranberry units so that all of these seams are nested or ironed in opposite directions. So then we can go ahead and put these together, and those seams will nest, and we'll have a nice point there. And we're going to iron away from the center row. And we will add our last row, and our little block will be done. There's our center square unit, and you are going to make 5 of these. So I've got 4 more of these to make. Okay, there's our 5 center units ironed away from that center row. So I'm going to set those aside with our 20 other units that we just did. And next up is we're going to take these long strips that we cut. We're going to take 2 of the background and the 2 gold we cut for block A only. And we're going to put them together like this with the fabric, and we're going to sew 1/4 of an inch, and we're going to iron towards the gold. And then we're going to come back and we're going to be cutting these up. Now that you have them ironed towards the gold, we're going to be cutting them into 40 little 1.5 inch chunks. So that's pretty simple. Okay, there's my 40 units cut, and now we're going to make 20 units that are just like that. Squares with the colors on the opposite ends. And we are going to iron to one side. So take your 2 pieces, nest the seams, and you're going to sew these together and iron just iron one way. It doesn't matter which way. And you're going to do that for all of these, and that's going to make 20 of these square units. There you go. All of these are going to be the same way, and we'll end up with 20 of these. Okay, we finished our little 4 patch units here. I have 20 of them, so one of the last things we have to do before we can assemble this block is to build out this unit here. And we're going to make another 4 patch unit basically. So we're going to take 2 of our background rectangles here, and 1 of our gold from block, this is from block A still, gold squares. And we're going to lay it out just like that to make that type of square. So we're going to put this together, and we will sew that, and we're going to put this on here, and we'll sew this to make 2 rows. And we are going to iron both of these towards the background rectangle. Okay, I've got my 2 units I just did sewn together, and I've ironed them towards the cream background. So now all we have to do is put these together, and because of the way we iron them, they will nest perfectly. And we'll sew this, and we are going to iron this towards the gold square unit. And that's how we build this corner unit right here. We just now have 19 more to make. And then we'll be ready to put together our block. Okay, I finished my corner units. I don't think I mentioned, but you want to make sure that your cream square in this block right here is in the upper left-hand corner, and that's how you put your cream rectangle on. We are now ready to put our block together. Woo! So, this is not too hard. We are going to take a corner and make sure that our gold is in the corner. We're going to put one of these here and another corner. Make sure the gold's in the corner. And so all of these are going to point out. And then we've got our center. Take one of these, point it out, and then repeat for the bottom. And that's how our square is going to go together. It's just a 9 patch. And we are going to end up ironing towards the corners here, and then towards the one center patch in the middle. So that's basically it. We're going to make 5 of these, and we will have our 5 block A's finished. And the only seams, looks like, let's see, the only seams we have to match here are right here in the middle, and that's it. And they are nested. I can see that they're nested. Awesome! So let's start here. Let's put our ends together. Nest these seams. Pin those. So, and iron towards the corner on the top and bottom, and iron towards the center for this middle one. So there's the first 2 put together, and I've ironed towards the corner and towards the center, and we'll just add this 3rd block on to complete our rows. Nest these seams. Okay, here are my rows completed. And now we just put the rows together, lining up these seams we just made and these center seams here. So let's finish this block out. So exciting. We are going to be ironing away from the center row. So iron towards the outer rows. And there's our finished block. Look how pretty that is. That turned out gorgeous. So we have 4 more of these block A's to make. And then we can go on to block B. And block B is just repeating the same thing, except you're going to have green out here and red in the inside. So that's the only difference. So let's get these last 4 completed. So there's all 5 of our block A's completed. And they turned out really pretty. They're all the same. I've just got them stacked here. So for block B, we're going to go through exactly the same steps we did here, except our green color is going to go where our red is. So our green rectangles will be here, and our green rectangles will be here in the middle. And then the red is going to be where the green is in this one. Same with the red squares. And then the gold and the creams are exactly the same. Oops, I forgot to bring in the cream strips. We're gonna need these also. You need the gold and the cream strips. So I'm gonna put the next 4 blocks together. I'm not gonna show you how I do it because I showed you how to do this one. We're just gonna be using different colors in different places. So we will come back when my other 4 blocks are complete. All right, we got all 9 of our blocks done. We got 5 of the red, which is block A. That's why I'm calling it red. 4 of the green, which is block B. So now we gotta start assembling this into our quilt. I don't have enough room here to lay it out, but we're gonna make 3 rows that are red, green, red. And then we're gonna take these strips that we cut from the background and we're gonna put those in between. That's how we're gonna make our rows. So then we're gonna have 2 of these rows, and then we're gonna have 1 of a green, red, green variety. So 2 rows, red, green, red, with the sashing in the middle of each of these blocks, and then 1 row of the green, red, green with sashing in the middle of these blocks. And we're gonna iron towards the sashing. And then when we get these 3 rows completed, we'll come back and make the sashing that goes in between the 2 rows. So I'm gonna get these 3 rows completed and come back from there. So take your sashing and put it on and sew it and iron it towards the sashing, and then attach your next one and just keep moving on over. Okay, I got my 3 rows together with my little sashing pieces in between, and I've got my 2 rows of red, green, red, and my 1 row of green, red, green. So the next thing we want to do is make the sashing that goes in between our rows, and we're gonna take the 4 cranberry units that we cut in the beginning, square units, and then our 9-inch units, rectangles, and we're just gonna take our cranberry and put it in between here. I've got another 9-inch somewhere. I'll have to find it. Oh, there it is. So we're going to make 2 of these because it's going to go in between the 2 rows. That's how it's going to be laid out. So we'll just kind of sew across this way. We're going to iron away from the little square patches here. So let's get our little sashing rows put together, and then we can put the whole quilt top together. Okay, got my sashing rows done, and I have ironed all my pieces here towards the cream color because this is ironed towards the cream color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add these 2 sashings to my center row on the top and the bottom, and then I can just add the rows, the top and bottom rows onto this center piece. So we just need to line up these seams here, make sure they nest, and then line the rest up and get it sewn on. I'm going to iron towards the sashing. I'm going to get started and come back and show you how I put the other rows on. Okay, there's my sashing. Both of them I put onto the middle row. So now I can just take my other rows and add them exactly the same way. And I can add both at the same time. I'll add this row up here, and then I'll add the bottom row, and I can take them over to my machine and sew them at the same time. Just remember, you gotta match these seams right here. There we go, we got our sashing on. That looks really cool. And that's the center of our quilt. So the next thing we need to do is put on our inner border and then build our outer border. Hi, Snibs. Come here. Oh. So, congratulations on the center of the quilt if you've gotten this far. Nice job. It's beautiful. Okay, we've got our top completed, and the next thing we want to do is put our inner border on. So you can start with the strips that are shorter. I think they're 29.5 inches. And we're just choose two opposite sides to put these on. And we are gonna sew these on and we're gonna iron towards the strip. Okay, I've got my short side inner border on and I've ironed it towards the cranberry strip. Now we're going to take our longer strips, the 30.5 inch I think, and we're just going to put those on the other sides and they'll go from end to end and sew it on, and we are going to iron towards the cranberry strip again. There's our border. It looks so pretty. The quilt could just look like this and it would be beautiful. So the next thing we got to do is the outer border. And the outer border is going to be made up of this section right here. But they're not going to be like green, red, green or red, green, red. It's going to be red, gold, red, and green, gold, green is how we're going to do it. And we're going to have 20 of each color. And they're all going to line, we're going to end up lining the edges in this border. And then at the end we'll put our cornerstones in to the corners before we put the border on. So what we want to do is we're going to put it together just like this unit here, except we're going to pair up, even though they're not going together, we're going to pair up a green and a red. And what we want to do is this pile of green and red, we are going to we're going to do our diagonal this way. On both this set of green and red, our diagonal will be this way. And then down here on this set of green and red, our diagonal will be the opposite. It will go this way. And that way, when we put our two greens together, they'll be in opposite directions so that they can go in the same block. Okay, here is the setup for the border. Even though we're going to have a set of green and a set of red, they need to be in opposite directions. So you're gonna put a green and a red together here and here. And then you're going to sew one of these background squares onto a green and red in the same direction. So 20 of these red, 20 of these greens are going to have this background sewn on from this corner to this corner. 20 of these greens and 20 of these reds will have it sewn on going this way. So that when we're ready to put it together, they can sit like that. And then you're going to have 40 of these golds with a background square just sewn on this way. And when you get done, this is going to be exactly like we did in the beginning. It's just that the colors are going to be put in differently. That's it. So when you're done, you're going to iron towards, done sewing, you're going to trim 1/4 of an inch from the seam and you're going to iron towards the corner on these sections, and on this one you will iron towards the gold piece. So when we come back, we should have all of these done and we'll be able to put our green sections together and our red sections together. So there we are, we have all our pieces ready to go to make our red units and our green units. My kitty just heard me talking and he's gonna start coming over here. Anyway, these are exactly like what we did, where you're going to put together a unit that has a red left, just a sec, a gold middle, and a red right. Same down here. with the green. Hope I had them in the right. We're gonna have green units just like this. So let's get our, hi sweetie, just a sec. So we can get all our units put together like this, and we'll have 20 of each of them. And we are going to iron towards the gold piece in the middle. Okay, there we go, we got our border done. It took a little bit of time. It's a lot of sewing and ironing, but it is complete. And what we are gonna do is we're gonna put these together in 4 border pieces, alternating colors. So each border is gonna have 5 red and 5 green. So I've separated this into 4 piles of 5 red, and I'm gonna do the same with my green. And so these are each our border units. And then what we're gonna do from there is just alternate. And I would probably make sure that you do each border the same. If you start with red, every border you start with red. And then you're just gonna alternate. Red, green, red, green, red, green. You know, I'm going off the camera there, but you get the idea. So you're going to have 10 of these in each border piece, and that's how all 4 borders are going to be put together. So just start assembling 10 pieces, alternating colors, and do the exact same thing with your other 3 borders. And we'll be almost done. Pretty close. Okay, one of the last things we have to do is to take our 4 triangles of cream and gold, and we're just going to put them together. Sew along this long edge, trim our little tails, iron towards the cream, and then we'll have a square, we'll have our cornerstone square. So get these done. Add them to our strips. We can put our strips on our quilt. Woohoo! Okay, so there's our corners. Now we're going to take 2 of our border units, and we are going to add our corner to it so that the dark side of this half square triangle is at the bottom of our border. So it will be pointing in towards the quilt. We'll just sew those on, and I don't know, I guess it doesn't say, but you can iron towards the cornerstone or the corner block. Next, we are ready to put our borders onto our quilt center. And you're going to take the shorter borders without the corner blocks on them, line them up on opposite sides, and sew those on. And we are going to iron towards the quilt center or this inner border. So I ended up pinning my outer edges and then working from then getting the middle and working to work my border into the rest of my quilt center. You have a lot of leeway in these quilt seams here. So I'm going to get this sewn on. We'll get it ironed towards the inner border, this part here, and we'll be ready to put on our last 2 borders. Okay, now it's time to put on our longer border, which has these corner blocks on it. And the only difference in adding this is you can nest these seams right here. So nest these seams, line up in between, pin it, and sew it, and iron it towards this inner border. Turned out pretty cool. If you are doing these, let me know. Go to my Facebook page and find the posts and put a picture in of how it's going for you, even if you've only got one block done. I'd love to see what your block looks like. So find the post a picture there and let me know. Leave a comment below. Let me know how it's going for you if you're working on this. I've had a lot of people ask me about this. This still isn't open, and I don't think it will probably be open anymore. We're already on the 6th month, but since it's the 11th one, they'll probably have a 12th. And when I hear about the 12th one, I will let you know, because I've had a lot of people who are interested in this. So, you know, follow me on social media, hit the subscribe button below and notification bell so that you can stay in the know with me on this quilt along. I have other quilt alongs, and I have what's in the box videos, and maybe some reviews of some products. So stay tuned, and thank you very much for watching this video.